What's good, you guys? It's Britt, Wahl Pro Educator and STMNT Grooming Ambassador. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how I create a brushback. So the tools I'm going to be using are the Wahl Pro Vapor. It's essentially a balding clipper with a lever. And then you're going to need a Wahl Magic Clip, the Wahl Hi-Viz trimmer, and then the Vanish shaver. So I'm going to go right in and establish the length I would like at the top. I really liked the way it was flowing, so I'm just gonna trim it a little bit. Now I'm gonna take my center guide right down the middle. And this is what's gonna establish my shape vertically. So I created a guide in the front already. I'm going to meet the rest of the lengths up to that and cut in a square shape. I'm gonna round it off back here just so that the weight doesn't sit too heavy on top of his occipital bone. After I establish my guide, I'm gonna push it over to the right side and then take horizontal sections in order to create the shape horizontally. So I'm taking my sections about 1/2 inch apart, combing everything back into that, pulling the hair straight off the scalp, and cutting in a square shape. It's very important that your tension is consistent throughout this whole section. Otherwise, you're gonna have an inconsistency in your shape. Once I finish that side, I'm gonna take my guide again, move it to the left, and then just do the same thing. Making sure the tension is consistent throughout my section, pulling everything straight up, and cutting in a square shape. So you'll notice that I am using a point cutting technique. That's just to keep the hair soft. Don't want to create any bold, blunt lines that I would have to go in and soften up later. So after finishing the shape on the top, I am going to section out a recession area to apex. And just pin that away. So now I'm going to create the shape on the sides. I'm going to do diagonal back sections in order to push the hair backwards and help me build a little bit of weight around the parietal. So now that I finished the side panel, I'm just gonna go in and cross-check before I move on to the back. So by doing that, I'm gonna put my comb in, lift everything out, and then just cut out the inconsistencies. So I'm just gonna continue on with the same thing throughout the back. So now that I finished the back panel, I'm gonna go back in and cross-check. Then I'm just gonna do the same thing on the opposite side. I always do the first 2 sections and then check for balance. I everything looks good, so then I'll continue on. I think cross-checking and checking for balance in the middle of your precision cutting will kind of help you not have to go back later and fix certain things. So it helps everything stay even and consistent throughout your haircut. And now everything is matching up nicely. So then I'm gonna cross-check this panel. I'm just checking to see how everything is gonna flow. So now that we established the shape, I'm just gonna dry it into the style and then go through in detail with texture. So keep in mind, we still do have the STMNT Grooming Spray in here, so that's gonna help prep for the style. So I'm using the Wahl Pro Vanish blow dryer. I have the smaller nozzle attachment. I have it on a medium heat, something that's more comfortable for my client. And I'm using my comb and just pushing the hair backwards. Now that the sides are dry, I personally like to style with my hands. I love a more loose, kind of flowy style, so that's how I'm going to achieve that. Again, medium heat, and then you're just gonna see me kind of lift the hair to create the volume and allow it to kind of lay where it wants to lay. So after we have him all dry, I'm just gonna kind of move the hair around and see where I need to add texture. It's flowing pretty nicely. I am gonna still add some internal texture throughout the top. Maybe a little bit on the sides, do some slide cutting to kind of help push it in the direction that I want it to lay. But so far, I'm really happy with the shape and the way that it's flowing. Texturizing hair, you have two different types of texture. You have an internal texture and an external texture. Internal texture is how you're gonna reduce the density in order to manipulate the hair. External texture is how you diffuse weight lines or add more of like a visible chunky texture to the hair. So because I want the hair to flow backwards, I'm going to take it in sections. I have my wide blade shear and I'm going to use a slicing technique to kind of break apart the density to allow the hair to move a little bit better. So I have my section, I'll take my shear, wiggle the blade as I come out. The reason why I'm using a wide blade shear for this is because it tends to push the hair as it cuts, giving you a softer effect. So you can kind of see all of that texture already. Move that out of the way and then take my next section. I work in sections when I texturize because you can over texturize and completely destroy the shape that we just created. Texturizing hair is actually what got me so into hair and very passionate about it, because just being able to manipulate hair was so fascinating to me. So anytime I get to add texture to the hair, I'm like really excited. So I'm just gonna continue doing this all the way to the back. Brushing it back, see how it flows. It's a little bit more loose now, flows nicely backwards. The sides are a little dense, so I'm going to switch to my thinning shear and I'm going to use a slide cutting technique to push the hair backwards. With this technique, I do want to be careful not to go too close to the scalp. Otherwise, I might create small hairs that's going to push the hair out even further. So I'm going to use the cutting blade, pick up a small amount of hair, tilt my shear in, on the surface, just cutting all the way through. And what this is gonna do is help the hair flow backwards, right? Because I'm cutting in the direction that I would like it to lay. You can already see that movement right there. Do the same thing on the opposite side. Taking my cutting blade, lifting some of the hair, and flowing in the direction I want it to lay. So after I detailed his hair with texture, now I'm gonna go in with my Hi-Viz trimmer and I'm gonna line up his edges. So now I'm gonna go in with my Wahl Vapor. I have the 3-guard attached. I wanna keep it pretty dark around the ears, so I'm just gonna clean up the length here, slightly even it out, and then go in, descend in lengths and clean up the taper. The reason why I'm using the Vapor is because it has a very powerful motor and it's just gonna cut through the hair very easily. I can do a lot of freehanding with it. So I'm gonna go in with just the teeth and I'm just gonna kind of fill out the length that it is now. And just flow on top of the hair until I hear it cutting. And then we want to get a little bit closer. I'm going to lift the hair, pivot to the heel of the blade, just to get all that hair off. Going in with the teeth of the guard, pivoting to the heel, which is going to pull the cutting blade away from the scalp, and that's what's giving me that tapered effect right under the occipital. Do the same thing on the opposite side, making sure I play it safe by just using the teeth and then getting in closer by pivoting to the heel. So now that we cleaned up the back panel with the 2, I'm gonna go in and start my taper. So I have my Vapors lever closed and I'm gonna create my first guideline. And then I'm gonna go in lever open to create my second guideline. I do use a C-stroke motion, especially when blending in smaller areas, because it's gonna give me that wiggle room to kind of blend that out without pushing my fade too high. Now I'm gonna close it halfway and just try to take out that first guideline. And again, because it is a smaller area, I'm only gonna try to use my corners. That way I don't push the fade any higher. I'm gonna close the lever a little bit more and then just kind of focus on the darker, more dense areas. Now I'm just kind of playing with the lever, getting everything nice and blended. After I had established my guideline, I am gonna switch my clipper to the Magic Clip. This is my go-to for fading because it has the stagger tooth blade. So that's just gonna kind of like texturize and soften the hair as it cuts. So I have my 1.5 clip. I'm gonna do lever open and I'm gonna go right up under to where I had cut in the 2. Not creating any guideline here, that's not my intention. Now I'm just focused on blending. So I'm keeping my pressure pretty light, especially right around this 2 area. Now I'm gonna close the lever, apply a little bit more pressure, and now I'm cutting in my 1.5 length. Now I'm gonna play with the lever and just like detail a little bit, using a light pressure and C-stroke motions to just kind of keep that blend. After I feel good with that, now I'm gonna switch to my 1 clip. C-stroke motions, not trying to create any harsh lines here, just blending down until I'm satisfied with my fade. Then I'm gonna close my lever and go right up under that. Very small strokes because I am working in a tighter area. And then again, just going through and kind of detailing before I move on. So now I'm gonna attach my half clip. Always start with the lever open, and I'm gonna try to blend out my guideline. Now I have it closed all the way and I'm just kind of tapping at that guideline until it disappears. And then now I'm gonna open the lever, kind of float on the surface, just detail a little bit until I'm really satisfied with the blend. And what I mean when I say floating on the surface, I have a very light pressure. At some point, I'm not even touching the scalp. I'm just kind of picking up the hair and allowing the clipper to cut it and do its thing. I'll apply a little bit more pressure when I know that I need more hair to come off. But I always start pretty light just so I don't take off too much in the beginning. so I don't have to keep redoing my fade. Now I'm gonna check it in the mirror. This will help me see the darker, more dense areas that I need to blend out that my eyes can't really catch. So I look, there's something there. So I'm still gonna use my half clip, lever open, and kind of float on the surface and apply more pressure if needed. Just using the corners, because at this point, I'm only detailing. So this is the finished product. Just to recap, we did a triangular shape along the sides, a square shape around the top. I did round it off right above the occipital so it didn't sit with too much weight. We did a low skin taper, and I used the Shine Paste by STMNT Grooming for a style. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's been a while since I've done YouTube. I would like to stay more consistent. So if you can help me out by liking and subscribing to my channel. And if you have any questions, just leave it in the comments. Thank you.